Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Squat Cobbler. I'm Kelly at KELLYTHUL on Twitter and Instagram, also known as Roll Deep. And with me, as always,
I am Dr. Mike at Official Pagan on everything. And as long as you're doing stuff online, you should like and subscribe.
that's right, and Roll Deep. So that was a new term. I did recently. I had our good friend Gerald Webb on, and he kind of shared that with us and suggested that should be my new name. And so trying it out, we'll see.
So, Dr. Mike and Roll Deep Tool.
Just Roll Deep.
Just roll deep.
Mr. Deep to you.
I will call you Mr. Deep.
Mr. Deep. Dr. Mike and Mr. Deep. There we go. That's going to win over a lot of viewers.
Absolutely. It's the buddy comedy you didn't know you needed.
That's right. Starring Owen Wilson. Um, so today, gang, we're back to one of our favorite topic matters on Squat Cobbler, which is the amazingly awesome national treasure that is Alice Cooper. And Alice it's been delayed kind of due to the whole COVID thing, but Alice will have a new album coming out. He's going to actually have a couple things coming out, but a new album from Alice called Detroit Stories. And do you recall the release date on that?
I do not. I was not prepared enough for
Yeah.
this, apparently.
Yeah. I I don't. I think it's 21. I don't think we're going to get it in 2020, but I could be wrong. So we'll I'll maybe try on the video to actually do the research, provide the
I'm going
actual.
to covertly pull it up on my phone to act
Okay.
like I knew the whole time.
Okay.
We're on video now, though, so it doesn't work as well.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll hide it. They'll never
Oh.
they'll never know. Of course, as you know, when we talk about Alice albums, one of the first things we do is we review the artwork, which we're going to do in a second when we share with you the actual release date of Detroit Stories, which is on the tip of Mike's tongue,
February 26th,
2021.
2021.
There you go. So a late Valentine's gift for everyone. So it'll be awesome. So we're going to talk a little bit about the artwork. They have released Rock and Roll, which is the first. It'll be the first single off of Detroit Stories, and we're going to talk a little bit about that song in particular tonight, and maybe some initial reactions to the track listing for Detroit Stories, and of course the artwork, as I mentioned. So let's start with that. Your reactions to Detroit Stories artwork, Mike.
So I got super excited. I saw the postings popping up on sites, and because I am signed up for the Alice Cooper mailing list, I got the email that went out announcing all of this. Got really excited, clicked on everything. I really liked you get like a little animation when they debuted the artwork which we'll get into more with Rock and Roll because they did a visualizer that just recycles that animation for it. I liked the concept a lot, but then the more I looked at the static image of the art, I don't love the execution of the concept as much as I like the concept, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's so there's. I mean, by and large, Alice has pretty amazing album covers overall. A
And I
few.
think that that's part of the problem.
Yep.
There's
Yeah.
been some great album covers.
Yeah. I mean, a few notable exceptions. Raise Your Fist and Yell comes to mind as maybe not such a great album cover, but he has a ton, as Mike mentioned, a ton of really, really good ones. So I don't think this like breaks the top five by any stretch of the imagination in terms of covers. I do think it's not a clunker. I do.
No.
It comes across loud and clear that this is Alice, which is really cool. And the thing I've never gotten over, and I believe it probably comes back to the deepest feud that exists between Mike and I, which is that Mike is wrongly convinced that Love It to Death is the greatest Alice Cooper album of all time. And I am equally convinced eventually I had them tied for a while, but I eventually became equally convinced that Billion Dollar Babies was the greatest Alice Cooper album. And the eye makeup between those two albums differs. It's the spider eye makeup in Love It to Death, and it's what I consider Alice Cooper brand centric eye makeup, which is the circle with the little lines. Welcome to My Nightmare, Alice, and all those types of things there as the eye makeup. But this features the spider makeup, and I just would have preferred the brand centric Alice circle with the lines kind of eye makeup up there versus the spider makeup. But that may come back to our feud. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's just Alice calling back to his greatest masterwork.
Yeah,
He knows. He knows.
I think it was calling back to I'm about to create my greatest album very soon. But so I mean, it's unmistakably Alice. It's kind of cool. It's kind of a colorized metropolis kind of cityscape deal. In fact, this is Detroit Stories. Kind of all fits in. It's a couple spotlights coming up with the Alice Cooper eyes, which have been used to great effect in concerts as well. A lot of times the scrim that they have down in front of the stage features either the spider eyes or the Alice Cooper brand centric better eyes on there, and and they kind of do that. So
Yeah, it's sort of a Batman signal.
yeah, it's got a little of the Tim Burton Batman mojo to it as well. So I like it. I think it's a strong one. I don't think it's his best one, but I did like it. But I can see what you're saying where animated probably adds a little bit to it.
Yeah.
Or just the straight still. Okay, so
Still isn't as strong an image as the animated version of it is, in my opinion. I don't dislike it. I know it sounds like I'm being critical of it. It's just like Kelly said, there's so many really strong Alice Cooper album covers that I'm nitpicking this in a way that I wouldn't some other album cover.
yeah. So you want to talk a little bit track list here before we talk about rock and roll?
So now I'm really going to nitpick. Looking down the track list, again, going into this super excited. Looking down the track list, I don't want to say disappointed, a little bit less excited. So this essentially rehashes all of Breadcrumbs, except I believe one song. But most of Breadcrumbs is recycled on this. And then it expands on that. So it reminded me instantly what I came back to when we did our review of Breadcrumbs was Breadcrumbs, is a little longer than a traditional EP. I felt like, and I remember saying, like, I wish they had just done a few extra songs and just made this an album, like just a short album. And now I feel like this feels like an expanded version of Breadcrumbs rather than an entirely standalone piece. When I'm looking at the track listing and there's like 5 songs off of Breadcrumbs on there. And then the single we already heard, of course, which I think we already expected to be on there. But seeing that and 5 songs from Breadcrumbs, and granted, there is like 15 tracks on here, so we're getting a lot of new stuff. But it's not this album's fault, but it just underlined to me that Breadcrumbs should have been its own standalone album. And then if you wanted to, take 10 more songs and make another album out of it. But I feel like we could have gotten a full-length Breadcrumbs album that would have been stronger because of it, and then still gotten these songs. What about you, sir?
I hear what you're saying. And it is, I mean, Breadcrumbs was kind of advertised. It was a love letter to Detroit sound anyway. And the performers were all kind of the standby Detroit folks. And all of that, which carries forward into this album in a big way as well. So, it is intriguing because to a large degree, this is just the big brother of Breadcrumbs. This is the fully realized Breadcrumbs. A lot of more stuff. So I get that. The fact that there are actually 15 tracks on it, so you can take the Breadcrumbs one and the single, and even if you kind of discounted all of those, you still have 9 new tracks. So I think it stands alone as an album, but it's interesting that it to me, to a certain degree, it cannibalizes the need to get Breadcrumbs at this point. If you haven't, you can probably get this and get about just as much enjoyment. I think you're missing one track, so but you should get them all because Alice is awesome. But
Yeah, you should definitely get them all. But and I think that's what it is. Like when I listen to Breadcrumbs, I wish that was a little bit longer, like a few extra songs to make that more of a full length record. And then now this feels just like the deluxe version of Breadcrumbs rather than a totally new album. And I know we're getting more new songs than recycled tracks and Breadcrumbs, but it feels like they were. It's almost like after the fact, going that should have been a full length album, and then turning it into that rather than giving us two totally separate things.
Yep.
If that makes sense, it barely. Again, I know it sounds like I'm being very critical, but it's because we take the Alice stuff so seriously and look so much into it. That's why it sounds that way. It sounds like I'm nitpicking. I'm not disappointed. It's just I'm going to nitpick these things when it's an Alice record.
Yeah, and that's the thing I hope for folks that have listened to Squat Cobbler when Mike and I talk about Alice is one, it should be clear we're gigantic Alice Cooper fans. We love his stuff. We've we've discussed every one of his albums. We're gigantic fans of it, but we're not the kind of AMC post show Muppet guy that gets out and just says, "Was this awesome or super awesome?" And everything. That if there's things like maybe this could have been a little better, we'll comment on that. But that's really not, in my opinion, ultimately being critical. It's just being huge fans and knowing that he kind of hits it out of the park almost always. And every once in a while, it's like maybe this was just a single, or these and type thing. But it's just we're in no way are we being critical. Although we are, if there's things that don't quite, maybe this could have been better. We're not going to be bashful about saying it.
Right. And another thing, and this isn't even something I'm going to be critical about because it was something I was critical about on the last record and proven wrong about. Once again, I do wish going into it we had the live band as Alice's backing band and instead of studio musicians. But again, that's what the situation was with Paranormal, and Paranormal was great.
Yep.
So while, looking at the credits, I'm like, I wish it was the live band. I wasn't disappointed the last time, so I'm holding that at bay.
Yeah, and it's tough because he brings a tremendous lineup to this, like he did with Breadcrumbs, like he did with Paranormal, but he's also got his live band, which are amazing musicians, super fun to listen to, and that we're big fans of as well. So you always kind of like to see them together where you can. So I'm going to just go through the track list real quick. We'll put it in the blog post in its entirety, but it's Rock and Roll, Go Man Go, Our Love Will Change the World, Social Debris, $1,000 High Heeled Shoes, Hail Mary, Detroit City 2021, Drunk and in Love, Independence Dave, I love that. I Hate You, I love that. Wonderful World, Sister Anne, Hanging by a Thread, which was the single, featuring me and maybe Mike.
You still have to send me the still where you think I may be in it.
Yep, I will. Hanging by a Thread, we took that one, and Shut Up and Rock and East Side Story. So some pretty interesting stuff there as well. But Rock and Roll, first track, we're first track guys, been established in nearly all of our musical reviews. Rock and Roll's been released as a single, available on Spotify, available on YouTube. We'll include a link to that as well in the blog post. Your thoughts after listening to Rock and Roll, Mike?
So it's interesting because in a way, this is kind of now the official lead-in single for the album. And, first track, we're first track guys. I think the first single is really important. But because we had Breadcrumbs and because Hanging by a Thread is something that already really the seventh song from the album that we're hearing. So we're really like halfway into the album at this point of stuff that we've heard. So it's hard. Like I'm trying to separate this being like hearing half the album versus what's meant to be your introduction to the album, if that makes sense. So trying to ignore everything else that came before it and looking at this as, okay, this is the first single. This is how they're, putting the album out there, because Hanging by a Thread was a standalone thing at first, and then Breadcrumbs was its own thing at first. So looking at it that way and the way it ties into what we already know the sound of the album is going to be from Breadcrumbs, I thought it was really well done in that sense. Yourself, sir? What was your initial reaction?
So one, I really, really, really want Alice to have another single that performs well, to post Poison, to kind of get something else to continue to show that he can crank out stuff that does well and gets a lot of listens. It's hard. I think it's super hard in this world today to kind of have one of these things break out. I at least think this has a shot. It's got a great hook. It's got a great sound to me. I enjoyed it. I really like this song quite a bit. My one criticism of it is that Alice is an amazing lyricist. There's not a lot of new territory covered between each set of lyrics and the chorus. It doesn't move kind of forward. It's kind of revisiting kind of slightly different angles on the same part of the story in it. And so this is a 4-minute plus song, I think. In my opinion, humble opinion, unqualified, Alice is smarter than I am. Got to trust him. But if I was calling the shots, I'd have trimmed this bad boy back a little bit, tightened it up a little bit, that you could have probably run 2/3 as long as it did and have been just as fine, could have covered as much territory. But I think it's got a lot of the hallmarks, a really kind of cool Detroit guitar riff in it, some great Alice growl / vocals. He hits kind of almost a falsetto note in it, which is interesting. You don't get that a lot from Alice. That was kind of cool. The thing is, and I don't know, it's driving me crazy. The chorus, part of the chorus is "It's All Right," and when he's singing "It's All Right," there is a group chorus of "It's All Right," and when I hear that, that is reminiscent of something, and I don't
Is
know.
it the original song? It's a cover song.
Rock and roll?
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't think I'm remembering the "It's All Right" chorus from that. It's
From the original song.
From the original song. It's the sound of that background chorus that is really reminiscent of something else, and I cannot put my finger on what it is yet.
I'm gonna have to go back and listen to it, because I do find like your observations on those things are dead on, and it's usually stuff I can't put my finger on when I'm listening to it, and then you'll just perfectly articulate that.
Yeah, so I don't know where it's coming from, but I liked it. I liked it quite a bit. Who knows in this world what gets airplay, what doesn't, what will stick or not. But you always get this great excitement. Hey, here's the new Alice Cooper single, and you hear it, man, I just want to fall in love with this thing, and I did on this one. I enjoy it. I'll play this again and again. It's fun. It's really good. A good, strong start. I think we do know, to your point earlier, we're familiar with Breadcrumbs. We're familiar with how that kind of played out. I think we're going to get more of that here, which is not all bad.
No,
but
yeah, I mean, my biggest complaint about Breadcrumbs is I wish there was more of it. So
here you go.
So in a way, I got what I wanted.
Yeah. So quit your bitching. So exciting time. We got to wait till February for the whole deal. But
now, are you going to be a physical copy guy on this?
It's a great question. I may, so Grandpa Tool here. I have always tended to like to have a CD copy of it that I create. That I strip, I create digitally, rip it, get it out to be able to listen to on all my devices. But I just kind of always like to have a physical copy. My Alice vinyl collection, which was big up until Special Forces. Yeah, probably Special Forces was about where my vinyl Alice ended. Dada. Dada was the last vinyl Alice I got. But then kind of over time, Christmases and times come, and I've gotten the blue vinyl edition of Special Forces, which is amazing.
Nice. I was actually going to ask if you have that.
Yes, I do.
I saw it at a store, and I regret not purchasing it when I saw it.
Yeah, and and totally uninteresting to anyone listening, but I'm sharing it because I want to share with Mike our Special Forces review. Well, maybe folks should go check out our review of Special Forces out there because of all the videos we put together for Alice. It has continued to climb up, and it's about to break into our top 4 Alice Cooper reviews.
Would never have guessed that.
Yeah, me either.
Not that I think it's a bad episode or anything like that. Just it's not a record you hear people talk about.
No, not at all. But we've got $1 Billion Babies well ahead of Love It to Death in terms of listens.
And well, people have to try and understand your opinion. They just can't believe that you think it's better. So they just need to hear your explanation and are trying to hear your side of this before they decide Love It to Death's a little bit better.
It's like a conspiracy video. And then the other 2 are the first 2 albums. On the first 2 Alice reviews we did. Pretty sure.
Which are 2 albums we don't like.
No, we're not big fans of. And those are the top 4, and they kind of, in terms of views, are way ahead of everything else. But we put Special Forces out, and it has just plodded along.
I wonder if that is part of it, though, because I know just from people that I've talked to who like Alice, but really aren't familiar with those first 2 records. So they actually jumped to those, like they came in later and then went back to those right away because they're not as familiar with them. So they were just curious what we had to say about them. So I wonder, Special Forces is a record that I just don't hear people talk about as much as some of the other ones. Nothing negative, just, not as much in the conversation. So I wonder if that is part of it. People are just curious about it.
Yep. It could be.
The reason, though, that I did ask physical copy on this is because, there are pre-orders up for the Alice album, and there are a number of different configurations of it. So that's why I was curious what configuration you'd be going for if you're a physical copy on this.
Do you remember what the configurations are?
Yeah, so of course, regular CD. There's a deluxe version, which is going to come with either a DVD or Blu-ray, depending on which one you buy, of the video segment of Paranormal Evening, the double live album, which we of course reviewed.
Yes.
You should go listen to that. The vinyl is what looks most interesting to me. Really cool looking purple discs.
Oh,
double vinyl on purple discs.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to give that some thought. So I will get a physical version one way or another. Absolutely.
I'm probably going to be vinyl on this for the purple records.
Yeah, sounds pretty cool. But
and then there's different combinations of those. You can get the vinyl, the CD, everything. Then there's I believe like a super deluxe CD version, which comes with the CD, the Blu-ray or DVD, and then some other odds and ends stuff as well. Not music or video related, just some various merch things like poster and whatnot.
Cool. So it's a good day. Alice continues to crank stuff out, and he's not going to be done because we've got this. I think that there's another album kind of cooking with, again, some involvement from the original Alice Cooper group, I think. More Hollywood Vampire stuff. So, I mean, Alice is not, he's not anywhere close to done. He's continuing.
One of the Hollywood Vampires has more free time now.
Yeah. He's going to be able to focus.
Really no excuse for that third Hollywood Vampires record not to materialize sooner rather than later.
It's not going to be a matter of time for some. Yeah. But, yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
But that's one thing Mike and I haven't, so we owe you, loyal Squat Cobbler Alice Cooper listeners, we owe you some major Beasto Blanco coverage and Hollywood Vampire stuff, which we haven't really done. So we'll get about that business as well. But obviously anything that's Alice related that starts to come up, that's what we're going to jump on first, and that's what we've done here. So
I am curious to get into the Hollywood Vampire stuff. I think those are going to be interesting episodes.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting lineup in terms of who's kind of in the Hollywood Vampires, and it's still, I mean, the Alice's influence is there, but it's a different, he's not the villain. He's just the rock and roll guy in Hollywood Vampires. So it'll be kind of, those will be fun conversations. And the Beasto Blanco stuff will be great because Chuck is awesome. And even
though Kelly said he would punch him in the face.
I did not.
He did. He did. You can go back and listen to
I
it.
did.
It's recorded.
The word could was there. Wasn't I want to?
Could punch him in the
He
face.
was. It was a measure of distance. It was. He was so close. I
is a
could
measure of
have
distance.
punched him in the face. I was just
Face punching is a measure of distance, kids.
It's a cubit. It's kind of I don't know. All right.
In the Tool household, a punch in the face is a measure of distance. Kelly was social distancing before that was
That's
a thing.
right.
By
Yeah.
threatening to punch people in the face.
See, this is before all that because I could have said we were clearly not socially distanced, and then I wouldn't have to deal with all this crap. Well, if only the pandemic had come earlier,
Right?
my life would be so much better. So, hey, on that up note, I think we're going to wrap it up for this week. So, as you folks, hopefully, for you loyal Squat Cobbler listeners, know we're largely doing a lot more retro arcade stuff. Got good listenership on that, and that's gone really well. Reminder again to please like and subscribe to the Bog Panda YouTube channel to get all of the different stuff. But you always know with Squat Cobbler, if there's Alice Cooper stuff to talk about, we're talking about it. So that's what we did this week. So thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.